Ari Lennox and Jazmine Sullivan. Let's do it.
Spoke life into me, invigoration, blessings, soul, turmoil, but heaven.
I really like that intro, and I respect that intro. You know, art is about making a statement, right? I like spoken word. I think that in a performance, when you have a lot of different styles of art going on, I think it creates kind of like a really compelling journey. And so to do this sort of spoken thing and then the audio effect into Jazmine singing, I think that's pretty cool. You gotta be kidding me. That's so crisp. So runs like that, I mean, first of all, you have to take a very, very delicate approach when you have runs that are that fast. I mean, that's very, very fast. So your folds have to be very, very thin when you do that because they're constantly changing like their length and the amount of cycles per second that they're oscillating at, which is oscillating is just when they come together. Like, you know, right? If you're singing A440, your folds are oscillating, coming together and coming apart, 440 times a second, right? So that's pretty demanding stuff. And if you're not creating a thinness in the fold so that they can move and adjust very quickly and easily, you're never going to be able to do this kind of stuff. That's just that's, like, oh god, that's ridiculous. I could listen to that again and again, what we want. So, I mentioned the lightness of the folds, but also you just have to take the tiniest breath. So there's what's called the Bernoulli effect, right? So if you take two pieces of paper right here, like put them straight ahead and blow through the paper's going to come together. That's kind of how the vocal folds work, right? And so we were talking about how the vocal folds need to be very thin when they move that fast. Part of being able to achieve that is not having an excessive exhale. And if you bring in too much of an inhale, that excessive exhale is going to happen, right? You're going to expand. The body is going to want to respond with a contraction if you take in too much air. So I just can't put enough emphasis on how important it is to just not only lighten everything up, but to also have the breath behind it that is appropriate for what you are trying to accomplish. And this is just stellar.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, like, you can hate me all you want for playing that 3 times in a row, but I mean, come on. That's just ridiculous.
Ari Lennox, sing it, girl. So
Okay. This like, blending tends to be a topic that a lot of people don't really like to talk about. Everyone wants to gush about like the solo stuff, getting lush sounds, all this other stuff. But listen, Jazmine is a better soloist than anybody who's going to watch this video. Like, and Ari Lennox is not like, someone to sleep on either, right? So we have two really, really, really great artists who are blending, right? So what Jazmine is ordinarily known for doing, she's not really doing here because she's working with Ari Lennox. Ari Lennox has a tendency to go for a bright, brassy sound, right? And so what we have here is Jazmine making an adjustment. It's not a bad thing to make that adjustment. It's actually like you want to do that. When you are singing with somebody else, you want to sound like you were meant to sing together that entire time, right? So this is just a lot of bright vowels from Jazmine and Ari doing her thing. Right? So the way that you would generally mix this, right? If you had like a lot of post-production options, you'd have like one person taking the higher frequencies and then one person taking the lower frequencies. But if you're a great singer, you don't need EQ. I mean, it helps, but regardless, what you're seeing here is just super bright vowels. I mean, you can even see it in Jazmine's lips. Let's get a close in. All right, so we're just going to kind of leave it on this still image. You can see, it's a little hard to see. Let me zoom in a little bit more here. But you can see Jazmine has that smile and that, you know, very, very forward tongue. You can't see the forward tongue, but you can definitely see the smile there. And then what you have from Ari is the super forward tongue and then these relaxed lips. And the sound that those things give you is going to make a blend. The smoother, softer lips with the forward tongue is going to give you some high frequencies, but it will accentuate the lower frequencies. Whereas Jazmine with that smile and the retracted cheeks, or retracted lips rather, is going to get a brighter sound. Pay attention to what that sounds like together.
But tell me why you deserve it.
I mean, it's just stellar. It's stellar. Because what you have to do is you have to, even though like an A vowel is an A vowel, an E vowel is an E vowel, you have to color these things a certain way when you're working with somebody else. And that's what these incredible women do, right? Ari's doing it. Jazmine's doing it. And it's brilliant. I mean, like, so, you know, we get really bright vowels, we get really bright sounds, and now we get that shift, right? She's not having to blend with Ari Lennox here. She's got a little solo spot, and so what you see here are very, very different vowels. Right? And, you know, ooh vowel, yeah, you're going to purse your lips a little bit, but like I was saying, you can take any vowel. Ooh, like you can morph any vowel, like like there's a lot of different ways to do ooh, you know, and it might sound ridiculous to you to kind of like do this almost like Tibetan monk chant to kind of experiment with different vowels, but it's actually incredibly beneficial because what you're seeing here from Jazmine is just way different than what she was doing before, and it's on purpose. Right? Why that I, when she was doing it before, super bright. Not the case right now, right? And then Ari Lennox comes in. Super bright, like super bright. And that's more of her style. But it's just really cool because then we have contrast, right? Love me some contrast. So we have the blending here. And then Jazmine comes in with that smooth. And then Ari comes in very bright. And so it makes it, there's a lot of ways to develop music, right? There are 4 key things in music that make music music. You got rhythm, melody, harmony, and timbre. We are currently living in the age of timbre. More is being done with sound and sound design than in any other period of time in music. But right now, the way that this music right here that we're listening to is being developed is through timbre, but timbre from the human voice, exclusively from the human voice. That is so impressive to me, and I think that that's pretty rad. It just feels like, and this is how it should be done, right? But like the way that they pick up after each other, right? Like it's like this beautiful relay race of insane, amazing talent, right? So with this Ari coming in right here, super brassy, right? So it like super brassy, and then Jazmine sort of takes it because it's like handed off to her, right? So she goes back to these brighter vowels, but she almost like takes Ari's vowel, and then it's Jazmine time now. Ooh. We got a lot to talk about. Okay, let's talk about dynamics in the high end, right? In the top of your voice. So what Jazmine is doing there is demonstrating incredible dynamic range, and then we're going to talk about Ari. Don't worry, but for right now, let's just focus on these dynamics and what is going on with Jazmine. It's super delicate. The inhales that you're working with, again, very, very, you need less air when you go up higher. And the reason why you need less air when you go up higher is because the folds are going to thin, they're going to thin, they're going to thin. And if you put too much air pressure behind thin folds, they're going to pop into like a falsetto. And falsetto is not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just you get a little bit less dynamic control. And so what you get is a very, very lovely, light, lilting high note from Jazmine.
And mouth though, 'cause baby, it's not that easy to please me. I need for a change.
Very gentle, super gentle, right? And then it gets, meaty.
Different positions.
I think that's awesome. And what's cool too is that there's more than one way to hit a high note, right? You have belt, you have, your classical thyroid tilt, which is what we heard from Jazmine there, but we get a lot of belt from Ari. And this creates a very different timbre in the two singers here, because the thyroid tilt, the classical way to hit high notes, like the more standard way to do it that you see in a lot of different genres, not just classical. When you tilt that thyroid cartilage, it warms up the voice, right? So if I do and I tilt that thyroid cartilage just a little bit, not only does it give me vibrato, it warms up the voice. But when you belt, something different happens. You get this much brighter sound. And so it ends up being kind of cool to listen to these two things being done together. Right? Very, very, very interesting. At least it is to this nerd.
If you look at baby, I'll speed on it. Say you wanna love a canoe.
I think that's, oh man, okay. The runs are beautiful and they're beautiful singing, but I love taking again, like, so there's a concept called legato in music, right? And what they were doing there is very legato. Legato is basically just like really smooth phrasing. Everything's like, just really connected to everything else. What would be a way to contrast legato singing? Well, they're using Jazmine used a glottal, which is just a vowel that begins and ends, and you just kind of do it there. And then Ari goes into rapping. And so again, we have contrast. Contrast keeps things interesting, right? You have this one thing and it leaps to another thing. It's a way of developing music.
Say you wanna love a canoe. Hey, nothing stop you.
Yes! Victory. Background singers. I love it.
Hey, got it wetter than the Chesapeake Bay. Nothing stop you.
I love every time I hear R&B, like, so just for some context, I went from Brian McKnight opera for like 14 years, and then all of a sudden I'm being introduced to like neo soul and new R&B, and I'm hearing Jazmine for like it's like the first time only like a couple of months ago, and so like I'm super new to this particular style. And I love that there's a lot of background singers in this style, because what you get from that and them just being there, even if it's that little moment, what you get is so much like power. The way that the harmony just makes things just kind of stick.
Take you wanna love a canoe. Chesapeake Bay. Nothing stop you.
Right? That moment has such power because of the background singer. Totally underappreciated, because the background singers that I know Jazmine has, that I've seen with Ari, all of these NPR concerts where they bring in their background singers are incredible. Super good. And one of the key points to point out why they're super good is listen to just how tight that harmony is. It's actually very difficult to get a harmony that locked in. You can't do it with just even a piano note, because piano is what's called equal temper tuning. So every half note is just the same half note distance between each other. And now this is like a little complicated if you don't understand music theory, but all you need to know is that the piano is tuned so that every single half note is the same distance. But what you can do with string instruments like violins, what you can do with the human voice, is that you can take these two singers, these three singers, four singers, however many are here, and you can make micro adjustments to the pitch so that it locks in a way that you cannot have with a guitar or a piano. Listen to it again. It's super, super clean. You can't get that with a piano. You can't get that with MIDI. That requires a human voice and multiple human voices. And I think that's why, to me, that sounds really cool. That sounds really special. And to just kind of dip it in there, I think it's really brilliant. I love how, so right now they're focusing much less on blending, and they're singing more in their sort of given style. And the luscious, luscious tone of Jazmine Sullivan is like this wonderful caressing thing that happens over Ari Lennox, kind of like her brighter kind of she has a more, it's just like, it's a sound that cuts, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, it's very, very clear. It's very, very precise. It's incredibly, incredibly cutting in the way that it can cut through a mix. It makes her sound sassy, makes her sound powerful. And the way that those two kind of blend together, even when they're not trying to blend, it actually really works out. That doesn't always happen. Right? It's like, oh, that's just really good. Talk about that, just like that kind of like classic straight tone into the epic little vibrato high note, right? So the way that you do that is first you have to find that high note very comfortably with vibrato, with everything, right? Because what she's not doing there is she's not belting. So what's causing the straight tone is actually just this tiny bit of controlled, intentional tension. And she's making it gentle, 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 gentle in this note, just kind of writing that slight bit of tension to keep it straight tone. And then she just opens it up and lets go of the tension. And so it's literal tension and release. And listen to not just the straight tone versus not the straight tone, like the straight tone versus the vibrato, but also listen to what she is doing in terms of like how the tone color changes from a little bit tight to warm as, well, I'm not going to curse, but you get it. Remember when I talked about ooh vowels and how much you can do with an ooh vowel? Masterclass right here from these two. I guess I'm gonna go practice now. Ye gods. Whew, that's good.